Hello and welcome to Adoption Pop. Hello and welcome to Adoption Pop. We're a podcast journalist.
A filmmaker. Did you forget your lines?
Did Haley space out? It's going to be great. Today's show is going to be great.
Excellent.
I'm a cultural critic, and we're here to burst pop culture's favorite adoption tropes.
Because we're adopted, people.
And we're forgetful. And sometimes we can't read. Haley, did you have a favorite Disney movie growing up?
Yeah, I'm going to go Little Mermaid or Aladdin. I was just singing along with those songs, man, and I wasn't really paying attention to all the weird things they were teaching me, like shutting off your voice for a man seems like a good idea. To be fair, who could know?
Who could know? Well, so I feel like as parents, you and Kristal got two bites at the Disney apple. One in your own childhoods, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and a second with your own kids. Who picked this? Our very own Kristal Parke said we have to watch Meet the Robinsons, the 2007 Disney animated feature that follows Louis, the imaginative orphan, as he embarks upon a journey to find his mother or save the future. Honestly, I got very confused. There's a lot going on in this movie. But Kristal, what did you think of Meet the Robinsons on the rewatch?
This film was near and dear to my heart because my kids loved it and watched it on repeat. And so, in fact, it was the one and only Evie Parke that said, "Mom, you got to do the Meet the Robinsons." And so I passed the message along. She was very excited to hear that we were covering it. So shout out to Evie. I still loved it. And maybe more so because it brought back all the memories of my little baby sitting around watching it, but definitely didn't pull in the adoption content piece back then like I did now today watching it. So what did you think of it, Haley Radke?
First of all, I couldn't believe I'd never seen this because I truly believe that my kids have seen every single animated movie there ever was and ever will be. What do I say? I think, why do we have to watch so many kids movies, Kristal? And I didn't really enjoy it. I wanted it to be really funny and have all these like secret things for adults, like when you're watching Shrek, and there was only one joke that was like that. Sullivan?
Yeah, I had never even heard of this movie since my Disney animated knowledge drops off precipitously after the 1990s. It was just doing too much for me. Like I wish that it had done less. I'll leave it at that. This is not my favorite.
There was a lot going on. A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say this started as a book. So I did what I do. I read the book. And it's a kid's book. To be clear, it took less than 10 minutes to read. It's a kid's book, and I think they've built the movie around a nonsense kids book, and I think they just should have made a movie from scratch. Like, I think, in my opinion, like the nonsense kids book is what like mucked up the whole storyline. But yeah, let's get into it. And I can't wait to hear what you loved about it, Kristal.
Well, first, can I say that everywhere I looked, including your intro, the main character, Louis, is called an orphan. Orphan. He's not an orphan. Literally in the first scene, his birth mother is leaving him on the steps of an orphanage in a highly romanticized scene. And he's not, his mother is alive. We don't know where this father is, but that's not an orphan. That's a foundling. He's a foundling.
Can you define foundling for us?
A foundling is a child who was abandoned by someone and found. So you can have let's call it a safer abandonment, where a mother brings it to like a fire station or a hospital or a baby box. I don't enjoy those. Or the steps of an orphanage, where the person leaving the child is confident that this child is going to be found right away. Or I have a friend that was abandoned in a field, to die. And luckily someone came upon her and found her. But that's a foundling. It's not someone that was, taken to an adoption agency, forms were signed, any of those things. It was a child that's been happened upon.
So this scene that you're talking about, Haley, is literally the opening scene of the movie. It's how the film opens. And it's also really clear, it was clear to me that the mother loved this baby. You see it on her face, this kind of devastation in having to make this decision that she's making. And we're going to talk about it a bit later, but I had occasion to read from this website that is I think it's a Christian-based website, but it's a website that kind of offers film and media guidance for parents. And
Common Sense?
No, it was the Dove Foundation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, again, we'll talk about later like why I was even on the Dove Foundation website. But they give this movie, all the stars, love it. But they call it wholesome. They're like, this is a wholesome movie. And I just find that a movie that opens with the relinquishing of a child under what is very obviously, without even words, devastating circumstances that are clearly not the choice of the mother. Like, she's not happy about, like, it is obvious she's not happy about this. This is not someone who's like, great, I want a kid. Yay, let me go live my life. Like, she's clearly devastated. And this is what we're calling like wholesome family entertainment. I was like, okay.
You asked what I loved about this movie, and I think as an adoptee, feeling or questioning whether my birth mother loved me. I think seeing this scene and seeing the love that this mother had for her baby, and that it was a difficult situation and that she didn't want to do that, it speaks to my little adoptee heart that believed that I was a throwaway. And so it did touch me in that way. Like, oh yeah, I was loved. This was a difficult thing.
Well, and in fact, that baby who's left on the steps of the orphanage, his name is Lewis, and he does grow up with those feelings that he wasn't wanted. We see him being interviewed by adoptive parents after parents after parents. In fact, we learn that he has 124 adoption interviews before the age of 12. And he says, no one wants me. My own mother didn't want me.
So let's speak to the accuracy of this. And then let's touch on how the orphanage director responds to him saying that.
Okay, well, I'm assuming this movie is an American situation. Infants and babies don't hang around in orphanages for, 12 plus years. Babies are a hotly requested commodity by hopeful adoptive parents. And there, in no way was Lewis not going to be adopted within 10 days of his, being abandoned at an orphanage. So fake news. Next, do foster kids really, this I don't know. This I don't think so. Do they really have meetings after meetings with hopeful adoptive parents? Like, that doesn't seem right to me. I know in orphanage situations, we've talked about this before on Pop, where, families travel from a different country, they come in, who's the cutest kid? You pick one out, you take one home with you. I mean, that has happened, but really? I don't think so.
No, I think that the, MCFS does the Ministry of Children and Family Services. They do the matching. And I would not think that the children that are available for adoption, the foster children, have any say in who they're placed with at all. I don't know, but maybe if they're older and it's a kinship adoption, I don't know.
Well, and I think there's a difference between for a child old enough to be able to have these conversations anyway. There's a difference between taking into account what the child desires and this interviewing that looks like, it looks like a job interview, right? Like that's what it looks like that we see in this film. And while it may not be factually accurate, I find those whole scenes really telling. Because again, it looks like a job interview. And yeah, these are adoptive parents that desire something. Like, as opposed to a child in need of a home, these are adoptive parents that desire something. They're going to take a look at the merchandise and, figure out, is this one we want or not? No, we don't want this one. We're going to wait for a better one. We're going to wait, like a test driving of a car, or going to see an apartment, or a job applicant. We're going to hope there's something better down the line. So that part of it, I think, says a lot about how, anyway, the writers think about adopted kids or kids in orphanages anyway.
Well, and Lewis, during one of those interviews, is the parents that are doing the hopeful adoptive parents that are doing the interview. Lewis comes in and he's into science. He's a inventor, and the potential adoptive father, he doesn't want a scientist. He wants a kid that's into sports. My son plays in a screamo band. Do you think I listen to screamo? I don't. But do you think that I'm going to go see him tonight and wear his band T-shirt and cheer him on and, support him? Hell yeah. They don't have to be the same as us.
So Lewis abandons the idea of ever being adopted. He's done. And he takes his inventor spirit off to the science fair. Interestingly, he has come up with an invention that is going to reach into one's memory, because he wants to reach into his own memory and remember his mother, which I thought was just really interesting and honestly really intuitive as an adoptee story.
And this is coming back to Kristal's point about Mildred, the orphanage director, and her conversation with Lewis, because this is what inspires him to create this. And Mildred tells Lewis in the answer to his question of she didn't even want me. Why'd she give me up? She says, she may not have been able to take care of you. Did you ever think of that? I'm sure that she was only thinking about what was best for you. And so Lewis is kind of like, oh, I never thought of that. Mildred says, maybe she wanted to keep you, but she had no choice. You're right. My real mom is the only person who's ever wanted me. And then Mildred skeptically is like, wait, I said maybe. And she tries to slow him down because he's like fast track on this, like, I'm going to find her. She's going to take me back. We'll be a family again. And Mildred is like, you can't do that. No one knows anything about her. No one even saw her. But Lewis did. So do you guys have thoughts about this scene and Mildred's conversation, like how she's speaking to Lewis about his relinquishment?
It's giving Skippy in Family Ties. Isn't it?
Refresh the memory for folks who haven't seen Family Ties.
So Skippy, that's his last name, right? Or that's his name, right? Skippy?
Skippy Handelman.
Baby boy.
Yeah,
Baby
Skippy
boy.
Handelman. Baby boy.
Baby boy Doe.
Yeah, baby boy Doe. So he is a late discovery adoptee and then decides that he's going to go find his birth mother, and he shows up at her door and he's so excited, and they're going to start this relationship and they're going to have this wonderful friendship. And it does not turn out that way, but he shows up just with the energy and expectation that it's going to be this wonderful reunion, and that, but it isn't necessary. It doesn't necessarily turn up that way, but it was giving that for sure.
So that was episode 18 of Adoption Pop, and we're going to link it in the show notes if people want to go back and see that episode. But Lewis makes his invention and he takes it to the science fair. And honestly, this is where things go off the rails. I think this is where Disney enters the chat at this point in time. But
wait.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
I
feel like we should respond to what Haley asked about what Mildred said. How Mildred responded to Lewis being all excited. Did we?
Well, you started.
I did. Okay. I thought the way that Mildred responded to Lewis was very sweet. And I thought it was a very good perspective that Lewis didn't have. And I think for a lot of adoptees, including myself, I think at the beginning, I talked about, just believing that she didn't want me and she didn't love me. And if I was a birth mother, which I'm not, I would appreciate how Mildred responded to Lewis.
Yeah, I think within the confines of a Disney movie, I thought Mildred's answer was more nuanced than we see in a lot of films. Because I think typically we get the like, you weren't wanted. Or we get the response, which is what I got growing up, which is your mother loved you so much she gave you away. Which we know is not a good response for kids. No. It's incredibly confusing. And so I thought her response of, we don't know. Number one, we don't know, which is, you don't often hear that either, quite frankly. We don't know. And maybe she wanted to keep you and she was going through a difficult time. So I thought that was, nuanced. And I thought that was a good answer.
On to the science fair. So Lewis takes his newly made device to plumb the depths of our memories so we can think of anything that's gone missing from our brain. I mean, that would be helpful, especially for me in this episode. I could use it right now. Um, and things go awry. There's a villain in the background who makes this machine not work. We have a character from the future that arrives, and his name is Wilbur. And Wilbur comes and takes Lewis to the future. This is chaotic. It's confusing. Things don't make sense. The villain has a bowler hat on. We don't know what's going on. Do any of us know what's going on? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I was thoroughly confused by like everything that was happening in this part. I will say this is where the film links up with the book. The book is called A Day with Wilbur Robinson, and the book covers solely Wilbur Robinson's family, just like as a look at them. And they are filled with all of these characters. There's no other way to describe them. Multi-generational family, a lot of people in the house with all different looks and personalities and backgrounds. Quirky is an overly simplified way to put it, but we see this chaos with the family that Lewis gets to experience. And as there is this man in the bowler hat kind of in the background. And at the end of this particularly chaotic scene in which we're introduced to the Robinson family, Mrs. Robinson learns that Lewis is an orphan. Lewis doesn't have a family. And so for one brief moment, she offers to adopt him. And then she learns he's from the future, so she can't. Again,
He's from the past.
from the past. So she can't.
She knows that he is from the past. And in fact, Lewis is her future husband. So we can't mess with the space-time continuum.
Okay, I did not get that. But she knew. Okay. Is this the cowlick thing where he has a cowlick?
He's
Yeah.
got like the blonde hair that sticks straight up.
Oh, this
Right?
is some
And that's why-
creepy Back to the Future stuff where it's his mom and no. Okay.
Honestly, I was distracted in this scene by the like over sexualized cartoon mother who's built like the ultimate Barbie doll. And I thought, like, why in a Disney movie do we need mom to have these proportions? I really was bothered by it. Like, I try not to be bothered by that kind of stuff. But I was like, this is gross.
You sound like me.
What do you mean?
I'm always complaining about that stuff in kids' movies. Why are we showing kids this? Why are we doing
Why is her figure so prominent in what? Yeah.
Every Disney movie ever.
No,
right?
I know. No, you're right. No, you're
And
Pixar.
Pixar.
First of all, yes. But there was something about Mrs. Robinson, which maybe that's, Haley, you said at the top that there was only one, like, for the adults joke that you took away. I won't spoil it. I'll let you say it. But you know what? I'm realizing maybe there was another one. And maybe the other one is we have Mrs. Robinson who's faced with the decision to get close to a child. A la The Graduate.
Come on.
Anyway. This is also the scene with the
Gross.
funny thing. So you should say the funny thing, Haley, because it was great.
So Lewis asks Wilbur, like, "Oh, what's your father? Who's your father? What's your father like?" or something like that. And Wilbur's like, "He looks like Tom Selleck." And then And then the actor playing Wilbur's father is Tom Selleck. You know what, as an audiophile, like I always love guessing who's the actor in animated movies by their voice and like not looking it up. And that just, God, that payoff killed as the best part of this whole movie.
Well, and it killed also because he does not look like Tom Selleck.
Right. That's right.
He's blonde, blue eye. Like, he looks nothing like Tom Selleck. But it's the time. Yeah, I'm with you, Haley. I thought that was like fantastic.
Okay, so the man in the bowler hat is revealed. But in order to talk about that, we have to go back to the orphanage where Lewis's roommate is a little boy who has very dark circles under his eyes, nicknamed Goob. I think his name is Michael McGooberson or something like along that line, but they call him Goob. And the film gives us that adoptee trope between the good adoptee and the bad adoptee. Lewis being the good adoptee, Goob being the bad adoptee, because he turns into bowler hat guy, who is the villain in Meet the Robinsons.
Classic. And Goob is upset because he didn't get adopted because sportsing and it was Lewis's fault. So he's held a grudge all these years. Thus this revenge tour of the bowler hat man. Ultimately, we see old Lewis and young Lewis meet each other. And this was really heartwarming. And hearing old Lewis speak to young Lewis and talk about his value, and I don't know, I remember tearing up. I don't remember much about the speech now, but I love that part of that's what adoptees need. It's like we need self-worth and we need to know we're valuable. And we have often a lot of us have that idea in our minds, like our own mother didn't even want us. So, right. So what good are we? And so to have Lewis be the one to pep talk Lewis and have found his inner worth was so positive. And I loved that part of the story.
Can we talk about another reveal?
Yes.
The director of this film, Steven Anderson, is an adoptee. How do you like them apples?
Interesting.
Say why, and you're frowning a little bit. Say why you say it like that.
Well, okay. I love adoptees, and we're all on a spectrum, and we're all on a journey of of exploring what adoption means to us. And so it's curious to me that an adoptee would make something like this, which has a lot of tropey things in it. I mean, to me, that's a little bit disappointing, and perhaps he's not at this point in time where he made the movie, he might not have thought about all the things I've thought about yet. I don't know. I don't mean to be like prescriptive on someone else's thoughts.
So this film is almost 20 years old. So the media around it that I found was at the time of its release. So everything I'm about to share is 20-year-old information. And I say that also to leave the space, as you just said, Haley, for people to change how they think about things or how they might articulate them over time. I know that the three of us have done that in spans shorter than 20 years as well. So Steven Anderson directed this film. He did not write the film. It came to him already written, and it was a coincidence that he felt like he had a connection to it at the time. He was not sought out as an adoptee director. And in fact, the movie was presented to him without anybody knowing that he was an adoptee. But when he saw the original script, it resonated with him right away. Lewis as a character resonated with him right away. And he said, I was adopted as an infant. I wasn't in an orphanage, and it was different circumstances than Lewis. But those questions he was asking in the script were exactly the questions I had asked when I was a kid about my own past. And so I feel like that's why to go back to that conversation that Lewis has with Mildred about my own mother didn't want me, and Mildred's responses, and Lewis thinking, well, if I must have seen my mother, therefore I can build a machine to find her, and I can find where I came from. Makes sense then that that's so resonant. So resonant for us as well. I want to share one more thing about that Steven Anderson said. And actually, before I do, and I think we talked about this when we did the Finding Your Roots Kristen Chenoweth episode as well. The fact that adopted people get ambushed on red carpets about their adoption story. I will say, in all the media I read about this particular press tour that Steven Anderson was on when the movie came out was similar, like getting ambushed by press about his adoption story. So I really did feel for him in these interviews. But he talks about the premiere, which happened in Los Angeles. And his adoptive family flew out from the East Coast to attend the premiere. And he said, I was sitting right next to my mom, and while the relinquishment scene was playing out, I could hear her crying. That was very hard for me to watch that. I lost it in that moment as well. And for a few weeks after that, I couldn't really watch that moment or listen to that piece of score without getting extremely emotional. Watching that scene next to my adopted mother was a quite powerful moment for me. What do you guys think about that?
I think creating art and then having the people in your circle experience that art and seeing how it impacts them or seeing how they react to it is a very unique experience that not a lot of people get to have. And I think that was just like an example of that. If he'd never created this film, if he'd never done that film, they'd never sat together and watched it. He'd never see his adopted mother have that reaction. And I think that is something that's very profound when we create. It gives opportunity for people around us that would have never had the opportunity to see things maybe through our lens or through a different lens than what they had only ever seen things through, to experience them in a new way.
I'm going to be thinking about that for a long time, Kristal. That is so well said. I think most people, you'd hope, when seeing a mother in such a state of crisis, having to leave a baby on a doorstep of an orphanage, would feel something inside of them. And as an adoptive mother, I mean, that is representative of why a baby came to be available for her to parent. So I think there's a confluence of things, right? There's maybe some empathy for like what's actually happening in the scene, but also pride of what your son made, and feelings about adoption. I know there's a combo of things that could be going on for her.
So Lewis, in meeting his future self, and they have this beautiful conversation. And as we come into the closing scenes of the movie, though, one of those closing scenes is young Lewis going back to the day that he was relinquished, going back to the past. That, in my opinion, was the most moving scene in the entire film. He watches his mother holding an infant him on the doorstep, and he approaches her from behind, and he reaches out and he doesn't touch her. And he goes back into the shadows without ever speaking to her at all. And I really wish the scene would have gone differently. Not in the interaction with her, because there is a bit of this back to the future thing, right? Like, oh, if you mess with the past, it messes with the future. And now Lewis has seen his future life and his future over-sexualized wife, and he's met his future son and sees his future self. So I can understand not wanting to mess with the future. And I think for me, if Lewis had said, I don't want to mess with my future, I would have got that. I would have understood that. But that's not what he says when he's faced with the question of like, why didn't you say something to her? Why didn't you talk to her? What he says is, I already have a family. And for me, like the way that I interpreted the I already have a family is, and again, it's a trope, like the choice forced upon adoptees. Under no circumstance can you have two families. You must choose one. And so, like, my interpretation of that was like a forced choice. But I don't know if you guys had a different interpretation.
We shouldn't have to choose. Both can exist. We can love both.
In this scene, he's 13-year-old Lewis. He has not yet been adopted, so it's not a comment about his adoptive family. It's only has to be what he sees his future, and he's going to have this son, Wilbur, and has his hot wife. So in seeing that, I think I can get it. I remember when I watched the scene, and even as you were describing it, I was tearing up again and just thinking, like, could I not like grab her and like, I don't know if I could make that choice. Like, I was thinking, like, if my mother called me right now and I'm in the middle of a work, I'd be like, sorry guys, you're going to have to finish up. I'm out. Like, I still have that draw. I don't know if I could have gone back to the time machine without like turning her around. I don't know.
I want to read one more quote from the director. And he's talking about finding his birth family. That's what this is in reference to. He says, there is always a question in my mind, should I do it? The curiosity is always there. I still have that desire to know who the people are who created me and threw me into the world. And I've always been reluctant to do that. I think doing this movie has truly confirmed that not taking that course up until now has been the right thing to do. And it makes me doubt even more that I'll ever take that path to find my birth parents, because I just don't really need that. The future is what's important. Where I am today, my own family, my family I was adopted into. Those are part of me. And that's who I am, and that's what matters.
So we see this scene where old Lewis and young Lewis are meeting, and he still has the special machine he made to like for this was his prized invention, the memory retrieval thing, and it is covered up by the same blanket that Lewis was abandoned with, wrapped up in. I think this is a great example of adoptees who, and I'm not making a judgment on this, I think it's just facts. Like, some adoptees say they are not curious, and I believe at some point in their life they may become curious So you're not, but you saved the blanket as this very special item all these years, and it's on top of your most proudest invention and your prized possessions. Like, okay, like you're just not ready yet, and that's okay.
I was going to say something earlier about, adoptee representation, and we are all available for, consultation if you're working on a project, if you're, creating a film or a TV show or anything. But I think I think there's a difference between, having an adoptee who has come into consciousness consulting on a project and somebody who maybe is what you're talking about, Haley, somebody that maybe is saying, oh, I have no desire to look at all, right? And for people that would be looking for any kind of adoptee input, I think it depends, right, on the adoptee that would be giving input onto a project, because one, I think, could continue to perpetuate the adoptee tropes that we are really trying to fight against.
I think there's something about leaving space for changing mind, the changing of one's own mind, and leaving space for others who change their own minds. Like not changing somebody else's mind, but leaving space for someone to change their own mind as well, over time. And I know, look, like I didn't search till I was in my 40s. The reasons why I didn't, there's a confluence of reasons why I didn't. Like it wasn't one reason. It was like I always felt so completely separated from my birth family. Like they weren't even real to me. So like search for what? And then there were times where like I was busy with other stuff. Like this is just, I've made it through my life. Like this is not a priority for me to do right now. And like, and also like there were issues with my adoptive parents also. Like it was this confluence of reasons that I think could have very easily been distilled down to, I'm not interested. I also think the answer of I'm not interested is what a lot of the public wants to hear because it makes them feel good. And so I think for a lot of people, whether it's conscious or subconscious, the I'm not interested is just easier for everybody else.
And that's why people often wait till their adoptive parents die before even entertaining the thoughts that it might be safe to think about that. And I don't know if I misspoke, but I don't even mean having search as your search and like finding info about, even just thinking about the impact adoption has made on your life. Like we're having this discussion of like, would you want to be adopted? Or if you could have stayed with your birth family, because then it would mean you're not married to the same person and you wouldn't have the same kids, or you wouldn't be living where you are. And right? Like even having those kinds of thoughts, sometimes don't feel safe to do so because of other people's perceptions, how you were raised, what was safe in your own home, all of those kinds of things. So I'd love for listeners to check out the adoptee consciousness model, as Kristal referenced, because it gives a very good framework of what that can look like, just exploring this part of your story or this part and at what point in your lifetime. And yeah.
Well, and what you're talking about, Sullivan, too, is that society, it's easier for them to have that answer of, oh, well, I'm not interested, right? Yet, what's the first question we're asked when we tell people that we're adopted?
Do you know your real parents?
Exactly. Like, it's such a ridiculous thing. Like, just talking out of both sides of your mouth. Like, it just is. Yeah, it's very perplexing to me.
And this is the last thing in this movie, which is why I feel a little disappointed to know that there was an adoptee as a director, is earlier in the science fair, we see where the machine fails. We see this quirky science nerd lady walking around with a clipboard and super excited to be there. And I clocked it and I was like, oh, I found Lewis's future adoptive mother. Sure enough, the only people who could adopt Lewis were people that were science nerds just like him. And again, this perpetuates this thing that we're supposed to be just like our adoptive parents, as though born to. And that's the only way to make it fit. It perpetuates this thing for us to feel like we have to adapt and change to be more like them. And this it's like, oh no, we're only going to match you like puzzle pieces. But in the world, like, we're supposed to act as though we were biologically theirs and similar to them. So
I totally agree with you, Haley. As you're saying it, though, I'm having this other thought that, to be clear, I did not actually have when I was watching the film, which is underlying that, though, I think for adoptees is we just want to feel like we belong with someone. And I don't mean we just want to feel loved. Of course we want to feel loved. But also, many of us feel very loved in our adoptive families. Like, so I'm not saying adoptive parents don't love their kids, but I'm saying as adoptees, like, I never felt like I belonged in the house, in the town, in the state, quite frankly. Like, I just wanted to feel belonging. And so to the extent that Lewis winds up in an environment where he feels belonging, like, I think that's an adoptee dream, which is separate from being adopted or having parents, I think.
Yeah, and I think that the Robinsons are such a great example of embracing people's unique interests and abilities and quirky, weird personalities. And I don't know, this home just seemed really inclusive to me.
But that's not the home he winds up in. That's somebody else's family.
that's a family he made.
It's a family he made.
Yeah.
Kristal, I think you should have given a word.
All right. So this has never been done before. I wrote an award, but I just felt like it wasn't as fitting. And so as we were talking, I wrote a new award. I came up with a new award.
Hot off the presses.
I know. Because the part of the film that really did touch me as well the most was when old Lewis met young Lewis. And as somebody who has done a tremendous amount of internal family systems work, I thought that was a really great example of what that work can do and the healing impact that it can have. So the Inner Child Award goes to grown-up Lewis for meeting young Lewis and giving him perspective and hope for his future, reminding us that the young, lonely adoptee is but a part of us, and we can always, as adults, turn toward that inner child inside of us and offer love, compassion, understanding, encouragement, perspective, safety, and hope for the future. Listeners, viewers, and pop stars, we would love to hear from you. What award would you give Meet the Robinsons or to a character in the film? Leave your comments for us on Instagram and YouTube.
Adoption Pop is podcast journalist Haley Radke,
filmmaker Kristal Parke,
and cultural critic Sullivan Summer. In researching this episode, we relied on A Day with Wilbur Robinson by William Joyce, Edwin L. Carpenter, Meet the Director of Disney's Meet the Robinsons at the Dove Foundation, Director Steve Anderson at the Meet the Robinsons premiere at The Laughing Place on YouTube, and Jeremy Neuer, How Director Steve Anderson Met the Robinsons for animatedviews.com.
If you like what we do, drop us a rating on your podcast app, find and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and let us know what you want us to cover in future episodes.
Join us next week for another new episode of Adoption Pop.